Well, good day, everyone. My name is Dr. Kathleen Moore. I'm a gynecologic oncologist at the Stevenson Cancer Center in Oklahoma City, and I'm the Associate Director of GOG Partners.
And I'm Tom Herzog, also Associate Director of GOG Partners, and it's great to join you. I'm at the University of Cincinnati and serve as the Deputy Director of the Cancer Center there. Katie, I look forward to introducing this series.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think as hopefully many of you know, Dr. Herzog and I chair what's called the Investigators Committee for the GOG Partners, which has a lot of tasks in front of it. But one of them that we're really launching now is in response to you and to feedback we have received from programming at meetings on social media about the need for better mentorship, better guidance, metrics, best operation practices for people that want to develop a clinical trial site or grow a clinical trial site. And so we're excited to launch today a series of video kind of interviews and conversations focused on many of the topics that really seek to create a culture of clinical trial excellence and accrual. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing is, what do you need, Katie? What do you need for that? Four essential elements as we see it, right? And I think, you think about it, and hopefully the people on the other end of this are the first element, and that's the investigators. So we need investigators who are going to actually be the feet on the ground, if you will, at the different sites. And that brings us to, you need an institution or you need a site. And that could be either your academic center or that could be your community practice. But you need somewhere that you're going to actually see patients, conduct research, and so forth. Third thing you need is patients. If you don't have any patients, no matter what you have, you really don't have any research. So you need patients, you need a certain amount of volume and so forth to be able to do that. And then, Katie, to really do meaningful research, I think you need, you can certainly do small investigator-initiated trials and so forth, but you really need some type of organization. Preferably that would be a site management organization that can really optimize and tie all those things together. And most optimally, we hope that site management organization is GOG Partners. And so I think that, if you think about what are the things that we can do with that, how do you optimize those? If you think about the role of mentorship, you can really touch upon three of those elements, right? And there's not a whole lot you can do with the patients, but the biggest influence I think you can have is with the investigator. And getting back to our series, that's what we're really going to talk to, the points of how some people have really been able to start at small sites, start at large sites that are very damaged, which you and I are familiar with, and be able to transform them into better sites and hopefully optimal sites at some point. And we'll talk a little bit about how we do that. Mentorship also, though, touches upon the institution. I had a call this week through GOG Partners in which we actually talked to the research staff, and we worked out some things in terms of support, and you were on that call. And so you can see how that mentorship not only goes to the investigator who was on the call as well, but it also goes to the site. And then I think that, with the council and the IC, what we're doing really is getting a two-way feedback to the organization. So we learn from the sites, and the sites learn from us. So there's a two-way mentorship there that goes into that. So I think, Katie, if you think about it, how are we going to get to really creating this culture of research and enrollment? And how are these series of videos going to help us? How are we going to break this down?
Yeah, I think number one, this is going to be a very organic process. We've had a lot of conversations, and so we're starting this. But one thing just to say is that we really want feedback from those of you who are listening, because if there's things that we don't have planned that you're like, we really need to talk about this, we're going to develop a video on it. But we're going to start, we asked across the country, very successful clinical trialists. And as Tom said, at smaller sites, at private practices, in smaller academic and in bigger academic that had struggles, how they did it, how they walked into an institution with no culture of clinical trials and built it, how they walked into a culture that didn't care about gyn cancers and made them care, where they struggled, when they felt like they had to prioritize one thing or the other. And so you'll see this sort of series of conversations with people who you should see yourself in, and what they were able to accomplish and what things they had to sort of let go. So I think it will be a very useful kind of first view talking to people who are or in your shoes right now, and sort of what specific steps they took to create that culture of research, clinical trial excellence, and accrual to the benefit of our patients. So I think I'm
Yeah.
pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I think you really characterized it very well. I think it's really daunting, right? If you come out of fellowship and you say, "Well, I want to be a researcher. I want to be a clinical trialist," and there's so much to learn, and it's overwhelming. There's budget issues. There's all kinds of issues looking at regulatory, and then of course just the conduct of trials and what's all involved in your 1572 that signs off to the government that you're going to, as a principal investigator, be responsible for all these things. I remember the first 1572 I signed; it was scarier than signing a house mortgage. So I mean, it's interesting though that we have all these things that have to come together. But I think this video series is going to break those down. And I think the not one size fits all is really brilliant. And this really is a culmination of the things that we thought about in a retreat several years ago, GOG Partners, now probably, 4 years ago, where we said, how do you make sites that are good, and how do you make good sites great? And what is a great site? Well, obviously enrollment numbers, getting open. I mean, you and I experienced that, right? We're pretty good sites on the volume. Especially you guys are amazing on the volume. The problem is getting the trial open, and getting through all the regulatory of an NCI center versus you maybe don't have that with a private practice, which is wonderful. In which case, how can you be a site that has one of the best records for first patient in, which is really appealing to our industry partners as well. Absolutely. So there's lots of ways you can bring value as a researcher. And we want to really make that happen, and we want to provide that mentorship. So this isn't just a one-time video series. This is our new way of living, really, and we want to live into these values of providing this type of mentorship to the sites, and we hope you see that reflected in these well thought out videos.
Yep. I think that's, and we're filming this intro after we've already filmed some of the first informational videos, so it's hard for me not to sort of spill the beans a little bit with some of the really great tidbits that were shared just this morning with one of my good friends. I'm struggling a little bit. I'm a little bit flat because I was like, ooh, I want to talk about what we talked about already. So
maybe just one highlight. How about one highlight?
I think one highlight from this morning, I interviewed one of my great friends, Tashana Myers, who's just killing it at Bay State. Was one of my first fellows to graduate from OU. So we're basically the same age, I say. And she talked about graduating from OU, where we put a lot of patients on trial, and she landed, and she wanted to have that day, that infrastructure, that amount of accrual, boom. And so she had to sort of step back and set goals and look at her site and set goals. And she talks about that, how you assess your site, why that's important, and how she was able to really turn her site from a very meh, into one of the national premier sites for gynecologic research. So you'll see Dr. Myers talk about that. It's a fantastic video. I think we're probably going to have to put her on several more times. But we have many people. Oh, she's amazing. We have many additional colleagues, successful in different ways, with different strengths that we've asked to speak to you. So it's just going to be almost a celebration of the amazing people that we have in our field, but also sharing a lot of times very honest feedback of places where we failed and misfired and how not to make the same mistakes. So hopefully it'll be conversational and interesting to listen to, but also very useful in terms of things to bring back to your institutions, divisions, and say, hey, my goal is X, and try to negotiate clinical trials into the culture. So I hope that it's as exciting as I think it is.
It will be. I know it will be. Katie, it brings me back to fellowship director days of all those years of reading all those personal statements and doing all those interviews at two institutions where, everybody said basically, no matter what I do, whether I go into private practice or academics, I want to do research and make the field better. And that's how we've built G1 Oncology. It's really been through the platform of getting, it's an iterative process where we've gotten continually better through the research mechanism. and especially clinical trials. And our enrollment has always been amongst the best, and we were the best when we were an independent site.
That's such an important point you just made. Can I just restate it? Because this is made over and over again when you talk to bigger networks. GYN oncologists are trained in a culture that understands that the only way we get better is research. So almost every GYN oncology fellow graduates with some degree of drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak. Here it's a little bit more than in other places, but there's not a place where you don't graduate understanding that we're not curing our patients and the best way forward is research. This is trying to capitalize on that. The seed's already there in every single one of you. How do we give you the tools where you are to participate?
Yeah, this isn't doing a hernia repair. I mean, we have lots of room for improvement. So please join us for the video series. It's going to be fantastic. And thanks for joining us today to hear something about it and to really live into our ways of providing the best culture for research and enrollment. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the series.